Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. If you know me, you know that I am a dog person. I love dogs, but frankly, I don't really care about cats. I know there are plenty of cat lovers out there. I'm just not one of them. So that's the first thing to get out of the way. Nevertheless, I was thinking about a topic for a week of Pastor Gary live episodes, and I thought about doing a week about dogs in the Bible, and that sparked the thought about a week on cats in the Bible too, and a little research went a long way. So we get cats this week, dogs next week. Let's get a second thing out of the way right up front too. Cats aren't mentioned in the Bible at all. Not once. Now, there are some big cats like lions and leopards that are mentioned, but there are no references at all to domestic cats. In fact, the Bible mentions over 120 different animal species, but domestic cats are not among them. This strikes many as odd because domestic cats were known to exist in ancient Egypt by 1500 BC, and the Hebrew people had spent time in Egypt during this very time period and had contact with Egyptian culture. Some suggestions to explain the absence of cats in biblical literature includes that cats were not central to Israel's economy like other animals such as sheep or oxen were. It is also possible that cats were associated with their time as slaves in Egypt and with Egyptian gods, so they just weren't part of Jewish culture or life. We don't really know, but it is clear that cats are not mentioned. However, that doesn't mean that cats or their characteristics are completely absent. So, one of the characteristics of a cat that they are is that they are often still. Cats are known for their quiet presence and watchful eyes. In a noisy world, God often speaks in the quiet. Unfortunately, many of us are seldom quiet in order to hear God. Psalm 46 contains a verse that you know well, and it ought to be important to us. Be still and know that I am God. Let's talk about a couple of Bible instances of being still, realizing that there are many of them. One of the most intriguing comes as the Hebrew people are fleeing from slavery in Egypt. You probably know the story of them coming to the Red Sea and passing through on dry ground. Over the years of passing down the story, scholars believe that several authors blended different story traditions together. But one way to read this story is that as the Egyptian army approached, God told Moses and the people to stand still. They were to do nothing while God delivered them. In their stillness, they saw God act. A second story of stillness is when Elijah fled from Queen Jezebel, who had threatened to kill him. Elijah fled all the way to Horeb, the mountain of God, and when he got there, I'm sure that he was experiencing quite a lot of inner turmoil. God asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah pours out his troubles, and God tells him to go stand at the mouth of the cave he had taken shelter in. Suddenly there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard the silence, he went out to encounter God. Only in the silence, only in the stillness, only beyond his frantic, troubled inner chaos did Elijah encounter God. The thing is, it's hard for us to be still. I've heard one speaker comment about trying to be still in order to pray. We fill our lives with so many things. We are so busy and involved with our minds racing all over the place that we don't let go of it all easily. The speaker commented that it takes him at least 15 minutes in order to get still. It takes that long to divest his attention from all his worldly cares so that he can focus on God and time with God. In other words, it takes him at least 15 minutes of being still and quiet before he can even begin to pray, before he can really, truly turn his focus to God, express his heart, and also be open to hearing God speak to him. I suspect that most of us don't even spend 15 minutes praying, much less just getting ready to pray. Maybe we should. Be still and know that I am God. When we finally get ourselves out of the way, then in our stillness we can encounter God. Cats aren't mentioned in the Bible, but their characteristic of stillness is. Wouldn't it be interesting to discover that a still cat is a praying cat? Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.